1 English class. You have already had some sessions on English and I hope that you all are accustomed to the new way of learning, right? For a while, this is going to be our normal classroom. Shall we begin today's class? Are you all ready? In English period, we'll read, learn, listen and of course we'll have fun together. Shall we have a look at our textbook? Yes, this is Cbse Plus 1 English called Hornbill. You have an interesting collections in this textbook. And also you have another textbook that is Snapshot. But for the time being, we're gonna deal with Hornbill. Are you all ready? If you are ready, let's get started. My dear children, the first lesson in Hornbill entitled as The Portrait of a Lady written by Cbse. Before we begin the lesson, let's watch a video. Here is the video. We'll come back after watching the video.
इस महीने की पॉकेट मनी खत्म हो गई क्या?
सॉरी मम्मा।
राजू, पैसे पेड़ पे नहीं उगते बेटा।
सॉरी मम्मा, प्लीज दे दो ना।
नहीं मिलेंगे। हर महीने पैसे खत्म हो जाते, इतने पैसे दे दो, उतने पैसे दे दो।
और आइसक्रीम भी खा लेना। बहुत बहुत पहले एक छोटी सी राजकुमारी थी और उस राजकुमारी का नाम था प्राजक्ता।
प्राजक्ता?
दूर दूर परियों के देश में एक खूबसूरत सी छोटी सी परी रहती थी और उस खूबसूरत छोटी सी परी का नाम था प्राजक्ता। एक बहुत बड़े महल में एक छोटी सी बंदरिया रहती थी और उस बंदरिया का नाम था प्राजक्ता।
बंदरिया?
हाँ हाँ, बंदरिया। हमारी प्राजक्ता को ना लेमन एंड स्पून रेस में ब्रॉन्ज मेडल मिला है।
प्राजक्ता ने कल पूरे स्कूल के सामने नेशनल एंथम गाया है। बहुत बड़ी बात है ये, ऐसा सबको नहीं मिलता ये मौका।
राजू, थक गया बेटा तुम। देखो मैंने आपके लिए क्या क्या बनाया है। देखो देखो देखो।
राजू, कब से कह रही हूँ रूम साफ कर, रूम साफ कर। चल उठ, अभी उठ।
माँ, एपिसोड के 10 मिनट बाकी हैं, वो खत्म हो।
बाबा, क्यों चिल्ला रही है बच्ची पर? उसने बोला ना साफ कर लेगी। साफ कर लेगी ना प्राजक्ता?
ऑफ कोर्स दादू।
आप भी उसी की साइड ले।
कर लेगी साफ।
दादी, मुझे फ्रेंड्स देखना है। नहीं, मुझे दिया और बाती हम देखना है। वो जो पिंक साड़ी में है ना, वो काले कुर्ते वाले की बीवी है, मगर काले कुर्ते वाले को मालूम नहीं है कि उसकी बीवी है। पिछली बार जब उसने कत्ल किया था ना, तब से बा उस पर कड़ी निगरानी रखी हुई है।
करेक्ट। इसे क्या हो गया प्राजू? तेरी मम्मा अपने आप से बात किए जा रही है।
नहीं, मैं उसको डबल पैसे दूंगी नहीं।
मम्मी आजकल व्हाट्सएप पे इतना टाइम बिताती है ना कि शाम को ये वाले दौरे कभी कभी पड़ते हैं।
दौरे पड़ते हैं?
हाँ, तो फिर मंडे को चलते हैं।
इसका कोई इलाज नहीं है?
पापा 1 मिनट लो, दादी से बात करो।
हाय माँ। अरे माँ,
दादी, इट्स अ वीडियो कॉल, आप ऐसे रख के बात करो।
वहाँ पर बहुत ठंड होगी ना बेटा।
हाँ, थोड़ा सा।
तो क्या कर रही है?
अरे बैठो ना, दिखाती हूँ।
क्या कर रही है?
अरे फिल्टर है दादू।
What you doing?
It's fun, we are both puppies. बाय दादू।
प्राजक्ता,
हाँ,
आज शाम को मंदिर चले?
आज मेरे पास आज टाइम नहीं है दादू, 2-3 दिन बाद जाते हो। ओके, बाय। हेलो
राजू?
हाँ दादी, मैं अभी बिजी हूँ, मैं आपको थोड़ी देर में कॉल करती हूँ, ठीक है?
राजू कहाँ है तू?
आपको कौन और कॉल लेटर। बाय 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 बाय।
प्राजी, कितना लेट हुआ देखो। इतनी देर तक बाहर नहीं रहना चाहिए ना, सेफ नहीं।
दादू प्लीज, अब ना आप मेरे को इस पे लेक्चर मत सुनाओ, ठीक है? मम्मा ऑलरेडी बहुत सुना चुकी हैं। गुड नाइट।
राजू बेटा, एक बार दादी को फोन कर लेना। शी इज नॉट बीन कीपिंग वेल।
क्यों, क्या हुआ?
नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है बेटा। इट्स जस्ट दैट दे आर ग्रोइंग ओल्ड एंड जब से तेरी दिल्ली में जॉब लगी है, दे आर मिसिंग यू सो मच।
अब तू बड़ी हो गई है, पर दादा दादी के लिए तो तू छोटी प्राजू रहेगी ना। जस्ट कॉल देम वंस।
मैं कॉल करती हूँ।
प्राजक्ता सरप्राइज।
एनीवे, ये आपके लिए, बता दूं, ये आपके लिए। ये मैंने अपने पहले सैलरी से लिया है।
अरे ये सब की क्या जरूरत है, पैसा बचाना चाहिए ना।
ओहो दादू, खोलो ना।
अच्छा ये डायरी ले, इसमें से अनिल सेठी का नंबर निकाल और मिला के दे।
आप फोन में क्यों नहीं सेव करते हो?
नहीं रहता यार। अरे अनिल, अनिल प्राजक्ता आई है, वो अभी अभी अपनी सैलरी की तनख्वाह से हमें गिफ्ट दिया है, मुझे घड़ी दी है। हाँ बहुत अच्छी जॉब है, इंडिपेंडेंट है। जल्दी मिलेंगे।
My dear children, this is the video. Did you like it? Let's see how good observer you are. Here are some questions for you. What's the video about? Brilliant! The video is about the bonding between grandparents and their grandchild. Yes. What could you understand from the video? Yes, grandparents are short on criticisms and long on love. Right. What do you think about grandparents? Yes, they are so loving, caring, always pamper us and very supportive. Yes, right. Do you all have grandparents? Do you love them? Okay, let's discuss in our first lesson our writer's special bond with his grandmother. Are you all ready to listen our writer's story? If you are ready, let's begin. My dears, through this lesson, the author Pushpan Singh as the grandson describes about his relationship with his granny. The title says, The Portrait of a Lady. Portrait means pen picture. Okay, so the writer tries to provide us the pen picture of his grandma. Okay, he just plays with words and beautifully describes about his grandmother through his words. So now we'll discuss the relationship between the writer and his grandma. About the author, Pushpan Singh is an Indian writer, lawyer, politician, diplomat and journalist. His experience in the 1947 partition of India inspired him to write Train to Pakistan in 1956, and this became his most well-known novel. Theme of the story is written in first person and is in biographical mode. The story is a perception of Pushpan Singh of his grandmother through his own eyes. Let's begin the lesson. The Portrait of a Lady, written by Pushpan Singh. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose-fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. Dear children, Pushpan Singh describes about his grandmother, okay? Like everybody's grandmother, Pushpan Singh's grandmother also was very old. And for the last 20 years, Pushpan Singh had seen her in this way only as an old person. But people, his relatives or friends, used to tell him that once his grandmother was young and pretty. But it was really hard to believe for him. Okay, he did not believe it. Okay, why? Because for the last 20 years, he had been seeing this lady as very old. So people used to tell him that once grandmother was very young and pretty, that was very hard to believe. At the same time, he used to see his grandfather's photo, which was hung on the wall. Okay, a mantelpiece also was kept there. And even whenever he looked at his grandfather, he just felt that grandfather also was very old person. Okay, and the photograph, we could draw the appearance of the grandfather. The grandfather used to wear long turban and loose fitting clothes, and he had white beard which almost covered his chest. Okay, long beard he had. So this was the appearance of the grandfather, and his photograph was hung on the wall. And even our writer, whenever he just thinks that grandmother was once young and pretty and had a husband, that thought was really disgusting for him. Okay, he did not want to think like that. And whenever he just look at the photograph, he just thinks that grandfather had very old person. He's a very old person and he had lots and lots of grandchildren. Like that way he used to think. At the same time, grandmother used to tell her past to Kushwant Singh. She used to tell him that once she was very young and pretty, and when she was young as a girl, she used to play a lot of games with her friends. But Kushwant Singh used to listen to her experience and all, but he just treated everything like the stories of prophets she used to tell. Means that grandmother used to tell a lot of stories to him, so he just treated this experience also one of her stories. Okay, so from the first paragraph we could understand that it was really hard to believe that once his grandmother was very young and pretty. That was really hard to believe for him. Okay, because he just used to see his grandmother like this only for the last 20 years. Okay. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain she had always been as we had known her. Old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. She hobbled about the house in spotless white, with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of her rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. Now, my dear children, let's move on to the second paragraph. In this paragraph, we get the picture or the appearance of Kushwant Singh's grandmother. She had been always short, fat and slightly bent. Okay, and her face, we could see the crisscross wrinkle running from everywhere to everywhere. You people know that if we look at old people's face or skin, we could see that wrinkles, okay, so that we can see in her face. And actually, Kushwant Singh says that his grandmother is really old, terribly old, okay, and he cannot imagine that grandmother was once pretty, but he says that she had been always beautiful. Okay, that he agrees. Clear? And now we could get another picture of his grandmother. You know, see, actually grandmother used to roam about the house. Okay, every time he just moves here and there inside the house. Okay, how she walks, you know, just listen. I told you already, she has a stoop on her back. Okay, means a slight bend on her back. So with one hand always she used to support her stoop. okay, she used to keep her one hand on her at her back to support the bend or the stoop, and in another hand she used to count the rosary, and always her lips moves with inaudible prayer. Okay, means that one hand she used to support her stoop, and in other hand she used to count the rosary. Okay, and every time her lips moves in inaudible prayer. Okay, this is his grandmother's practice. At the same time, he tells that the purity he could see every time. Whenever he just goes near to her, he just feels that purity. Okay, he compares that purity. You know that winter season, if we just go to the mountain side, we feel afresh, okay, and we could just get that purity. Same like that, okay, see, listen carefully again. Winter season, if we just go near to the mountain, how it would be, okay, that freshness, that purity, the snow and all you could see, and then you just feel that freshness and purity. Same like whenever Kushwant Singh goes near to his grandmother, he feels that purity, okay, and he likes to be with his grandmother, okay, that only he says. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing-song while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. I listened because I loved her voice but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot and a red pen, tie them all in a bundle and hand it to me. After a breakfast of a thick stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. Kushwant Singh and his grandmother became very good friends. Okay, how you know? Because Kushwant Singh was the solo son. Okay, and his parents left him with his grandmother and they went and settled in city. Okay, so Kushwant Singh stayed with his grandmother in the village. Every day morning, grandmother used to wake him up. Okay, and give him bath. And while giving bath, grandmother just recite the prayer in a monotonous sing-song. Okay, means like a song she used to tell the prayer. So her intention is that Kushwant Singh must hear that prayer and get it by hearted. Okay. At the same time, Kushwant Singh used to listen to that prayer because he loves her voice but never learned that prayer. Clear? And after bath, he just dress up, and then grandmother used to give him stale chapatis. The previous day she used to prepare chapatis, okay, breakfast also together she just prepared, and that chapatis she just used to give him, okay, and she just spread butter and even sugar also, and every time Kushwant Singh eats it. Clear? And after their breakfast, grandmother just wash his slate and even take red ink pot and even red pen also. Everything together she used to bundle, okay, bundle it. Not like our time, okay. We have bags to carry to school, okay, but those days they used to just bundle everything together with a rubber band and used to carry, okay, to the schools. So grandmother every time used to just bundle these all things together and just give to him. And both grandmother also used to accompany him to the school. Listen carefully, Kushwant Singh never goes alone to the school, and even grandmother always accompany him to school. Okay, and both after breakfast, this all bundle up, and then both grandmother and Kushwant Singh used to go to school. Okay, while going to school, before going to school means that after their breakfast, the rest chapatis grandmother used to carry with her. Why, you know? Because on the way she could see the stray dogs. Okay, so she used to throw these chapatis to the village dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growing and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. So, Pushpan Singh's grandmother always goes with him to the school. Why? Because the school is attached to the temple and the priest was the teacher. Priest means the person who just work at the temple or church. Okay. So the priest was the teacher and the school is attached to the temple. So grandmother always accompanies him to the school. When they reach school, Pushpan Singh goes to his school and nearby that I told you a temple is there. Grandmother used to go to the temple. And either the side of the veranda, students used to sit and recite the lessons along with the priest. Okay, that is their practice. That time, grandmother used to sit inside the temple and read the scripture, means the holy book. Okay, so here the priest used to takes the lesson, and the children used to repeat after him. Okay, so that time, what grandmother used to do? She just sits inside the temple and read the holy book. Clear? And when they both have finished, means that the school gets over and even the grandmother also reads her holy book. After that, they just come back to home together. Okay. And while coming back at the temple gate, they meet the village dogs. I told you the stray dogs. Okay. They meet the village dogs at the temple gate. So, grandmother always used to keep the stale chapatis with her. So, whenever they just meet these village dogs, she just threw these chapatis to them. Okay. And these dogs just fight each other to get the chapatis and they follow them till their home. Okay. This was their practice. My dear children, this is the first phase of the bonding between Pushpan Singh and his grandmother. Hope you all have understood the first phase of their relationship clearly. This is for the day. I'll meet you soon with the second part of the story, the portrait of a lady. Be safe until we meet again. Thank you for being with me.